All right, welcome back to another video in the Intermediate Theory series. This whole unit is about score reading and score study. Today's lesson is about dynamics and articulations. These are things that are not specific to choral music. The articulation things has some things that are like a little bit more specific to singing that I'm going to be covering. You find these articulations in other places, but I'll be covering like the kind of the singing version, the choral singing version of these things. But let's get into it. So the two things here, dynamics and articulations. Dynamics refers to how like the volume of something, and articulations refers to kind of how we make the sound, period. So like how the texture or how something originates from our, well, for singing, it's from our mouth. Right, basic dynamic marks. Many of you probably know these already, right? We use Italian words for our dynamics rather than just saying loud or something, which would be a misnomer anyway. But so on the soft end, we have piano. We say piano, not piano, but piano. And on the stronger side, we have forte. Okay. And the reason I say strong is because that is the literal meaning of the word forte. Okay? If you take Spanish, you might know fuerte. It's the same word. Forte means strong, not loud, but strong. Okay, I want to really emphasize that it's not loud, and this is not quiet. It's soft, and strong. It's soft and strong. Then we have mezzo, is like a modifier, okay, which is medium. So in between piano and forte, we have mezzo piano and mezzo forte. Okay, mezzo just means in the middle, medium. Okay, so piano is soft, forte is strong. And I really, really want to emphasize soft, strong. Okay, make sure you really commit that to memory, soft and strong. Okay, so here we have this continuum of dynamics from soft to strong. Now we have, on the far left side, we have pianissimo. Okay, in Italian,issimo is another modifier. It means like more of something. Okay, so something's very beautiful, bellissima, and it kind of hear when we say it. And fortissimo. Okay, so the issimo means more of whatever that is. Mezzo means medium. So we have on the far quiet side pianissimo, then piano, mezzo forte, fortissimo. Now, you don't have to say it with an accent like I do, but I think it's more fun. So pianissimo, piano, mezzo forte, fortissimo. Okay? From soft to strong. Issimo means very, like I said. So here's an activity. If you were in the classroom, you'd do this. We could sing a scale from do up to sol and on repeat. Every time we hit a do, we move up one dynamic level, okay? So, for example, I would start at pianissimo. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, 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 do, etc. Okay, we're just going up in dynamics each time. That's all that I'm doing. Okay, so commit these to memory, okay? That you've got your pianissimo, piano, mezzo piano, mezzo forte, forte, fortissimo. Now, technically, you can have like fortissimo, pianissimo. We don't really have mezzo piano. That's not really like a thing that we do. But you can keep going. Sometimes the composers, usually you don't go much beyond triple. We for shorthand we say triple P or triple F. Usually you don't go much beyond that. If even that, singing it's kind of hard to get much quieter than pianissimo and still have like good projection and everything. So we probably, you won't see a whole lot of more than double P or double F, pianissimo or fortissimo. But there they are. Theoretically, they're possible. Just like a note, a mile above the top of the treble clef is theoretically possible, but we just don't see it. All right. Changing dynamics. So sometimes we start at one dynamic and we want to change to another dynamic. Okay. Now you might recognize these from math class, right? Where like 5 is less than 10. Okay, something like that. I'm sure you recognize them from a thing like that. It's the same concept applying here. Piano is less strong than forte. Okay, but the crescendo means that we get stronger or louder, depending on how you're thinking of it. Get louder or stronger. Okay, so when we did this exercise of singing from pianissimo up to fortissimo, we effectively did a crescendo across a long period. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. I got louder as I sang. The opposite of a crescendo is a decrescendo. Sometimes you'll see diminuendo or dim. Okay, it's effectively the same thing, diminuendo or dim. But decrescendo or decrescendo is probably what we'll use most of the time. It's the same thing. We're getting, well, now I just realized this is backward. So ignore this thing. It should be forte going down to piano. Forte going down to piano. Decrescendo. Crescendo, decrescendo. Crescendo, decrescendo. Okay, pretty easy to remember, I think. Then we've got all these other, you gotta remember, think about it. Okay, this is art, right? That you wouldn't expect like a visual artist to have like red and purple. They want the things in between, right? So just like that in music, we have the things in between. We have all these different, someone said, well, I'm not happy with just forte and crescendo and decrescendo. We have all these other things. So in this page, we have the subitos. Okay, subito means suddenly. There's different kinds of things, okay? We have piano subito. So I might be singing, that's when I get soft very quickly. So I might be doing do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. There, I just started forte. I did a piano subito. And then at the very, very last one, I did a forte subito, actually. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Okay, so there's some different versions of that dynamic. Sometimes the subito is abbreviated, like sub. Sometimes it's written out as subito. You can have a forte piano. Do, re, mi, fa, sol. So there, the first one was big. Usually it's more like do, re, mi, fa, sol. Like I started sol loud and then, or strong, and then I got softer on it. It's like, think of like a decrescendo that happens super fast. Okay. Forte subito. E sforzando is a sudden strong, it's like an emphasis. It's almost more of an articulation marking, which we'll get to in a second. Okay, so these are just kind of different like modifiers. All right, so that was dynamics. Dynamics are the volume, a little bit of how you sing it, right? Articulation is texture, how we make the sound. Now you might recognize the word articulation from like the way someone speaks. Are they articulating their text clearly? Can I understand them? It's related, but musically it's a little bit different, right? So we might be saying how you deliver language, whether it's spoken, like the assembly speaker had clear articulation. I understood every word. This is something that teachers work on all the time and that we do work on with, and your parents are probably like, I can't understand you, right? Articulate better. I'm sure they use that word. Versus, so this is like speech, sorry. And this is music. Okay. In music, articulation is how you attack or deliver a note or musical passage. That word attack is something that we use a lot because most of articulation has to do with what happens at the front end of the note. The oboe player's articulation was varied and expressive. Now, if this still isn't making sense, just hold on, it's going to. All right, common articulation markings that we see in music. Staccato. Okay, I like to start with staccato, even though it's not the most common one that we have, but because I think it makes it really clear what we mean. So these little dots, they mean they're short and separated. Okay, if I sang on my solfege again, do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. They're nice and short. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Short and separated. Think of them kind of like, when we're teaching little kids piano, we call them like popcorn notes. Popcorn notes, okay? Kind of popcorny. That's as opposed to legato. All right, I wrote a slur. The slur is technically the articulation marking, but when we sing a slur, we're singing legato. Now, here's where things get a little tricky, okay? A slur means different things for different instruments. On the piano, it just means everything is connected. On a violin, it means you do everything on one bow. On an oboe, it means you do our wind instruments, we do everything on one breath. For singing, we save slurs for when we have multiple notes over one syllable. Okay, so that's a little different than the other instruments. It's kind of like a string instrument where you have to get everything on one bow. So when you see multiple notes under a slur, it means that they've got the same syllable. Do, re. Right? I sang multiple notes with one syllable. That's what it means. Now, we can still sing things, legato. In fact, legato meaning smooth. Okay, that is the most common form of singing. Legato is kind of our default state. We do it so much that we don't really think about it. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. I just sang legato where everything was connected. There's a lot more that goes into a good legato sound. We're not going to get into that. This is just about the markings and how we interpret them. But keep that in mind, okay? So even though a slur, if you play piano, a slur means to play something legato, and we are doing it legato here, it actually means that we're holding this syllable. It's a little bit of a weird thing. We don't have a thing in singing that tells us to like make all this legato, because we just kind of make it our default. Okay, we have accents. You might recognize these in your language classes if you take Spanish, the acento, right? This accent. And an accento in a foreign language study means that you emphasize that part of the word. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but that's what it means. Okay, so in music, it's the same thing. It's a sharp, strong emphasis. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. They tend to feel like kind of shorter, stronger. Sharp is a tricky word to use because we don't want to make them sharp, like tonally, but you get it. Okay, so we emphasize those words. Strong. I think of it like a punch. A tenuto seems similar, but it's different. It's a long, full emphasis. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. So each one of those kind of pressed against, right? Not with my voice, but here's the way that I think of the difference between an accent and a tenuto. An accent is like, why can't I spell anything? An accent is like a hammer. And a tenuto is like a rolling pin. Okay? Meaning accents, or like a punch versus a press. Accent, do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Tenuto, do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. You're typically not going to have a whole bunch of them in a row like that, but every once in a while, if a composer's looking for a very specific effect, they're going to do that kind of thing. So those are the differences between those things. All right, here's a little exercise. In class, we would do this. We would speak this rhythm. Okay, the rhythm is E saw wood sawed wood. E saw wood wood saw wood. and oh the. I dropped the rest of it off. All right, so the staccatos. E saw wood sawed wood. Legato. E saw wood wood saw wood. Oh, we have tenutos. Saw wood. Oh the ba 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 ba. E saw wood sawed wood. E saw wood wood saw wood. Oh the wood. I don't know what the next word is. Okay. We got staccatos at the beginning, tenutos, which I almost forgot about. Tenutos there. And then this one sad little accent over here. Notice that there's a forte by the accent. You don't necessarily need to have an accent be forte. There often are, but not always. Okay, this is an activity we would do in class. We're gonna skip it here. I've been singing all these do, re, mi, fa, sol, las, but you can do this for fun. You know, pause this video, sing Mary Had a Little Lamb with all these different articulation markings. Mary had a little lamb, little lamb. Can you tell which one that is? Ding, 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 tenuto. Other markings, these are ones that sometimes you see, rarely in choir music, but every once in a while. Okay, we have, wow, this is a low quality JPEG I got here. All right, we have staccatos, which we did. Staccatissimo, which is a very, very short staccato. Martellato, a hammered stroke. I think this, I must have taken this from a string because it says bow stroke, but hammered is really what it literally what the translation is. Marcato, that's an accent, but sometimes if someone says marcato, that means really markedly, it's really accented, and then there's tenutos. So the only two on here that you haven't seen are the staccatissimo and the martellato, and then the word marcato is sometimes used. Sometimes you can have combinations. Like I mentioned with the dynamics, right? Composers are never happy with just having the raw basic materials. They want to do extra things. On this next screen is like combinations of things. Technically, a composer could do all sorts of stuff. You know, you see when you work in music for long enough, you see everything. So we've got an accent with a tenuto, a staccato with an accent, a martellato with martellato with a staccato. I mean, etc. Right? You can have all sorts of things. It'd be very unusual to have this many in such a condensed space, but you never know. So you don't need to memorize that last part, okay? But really, I need you to get down these 4 basic types of articulation markings, and then your dynamics all the way back. Sorry, oh my gosh, sorry for all this. And then your dynamics, okay? And your crescendos and decrescendos. Those are the things that I expect you to know to make you into a better singer. That is it for this video. I will catch you later. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.